Hi, and welcome to another interview with the people that are on my special blog roll on my personal blog. And this one is really special because I've been following Neil Zeller's photography for a very, very long time. He is a accomplished professional photographer from Alberta. He has done something that I have longed to do. He has gotten fantastic photos of the Canadian Pacific Holiday Train, and he's actually got a series of classes coming up for people in Canada who want to follow along and get these magnificent shots. So I'm thankful that to have Neil Zeller join me on today's blog interview. Neil, it is so great to have you here. Thank you for joining me. How you doing today?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. I'm glad to be here. Really appreciate you having me on. I'm doing great. This is the season that I get really excited for because my favorite photo project of the year is coming up.
Mine too. I mean, it's so great because we can basically be like little kids with a model train that's life size.
Yeah, yeah, it's fabulous. Train photography normally happens during the day, and because trains don't have lights on them except for the very front end, and they don't photograph very well unless you're in a lit city or a lit area. And we get this opportunity to photograph this fully lit train from end to end. That is one of the most beautiful things on the rails in transportation in general, to be honest. So it's one of my favorite things that I do. One of the most challenging things I do, but just the results are always just so spectacular, and the chase is even more so.
Now, let's first start with your photography background. How did you get started in it, and what are your favorite tools of the trade?
Yeah. Um, I was a contract office furniture salesman for years, for 15 years, and I had a midlife creative, as I say, and wanted to do something that was a little more meaningful to art and myself. And I chose photography, and then I had to go learn photography because I didn't know photography at the time. So this is 9+ years ago now that I just decided to become a photographer. I had a pretty good business acumen behind me. So that was most photographers are great photographers, but don't know anything about photography or about business. So I am had that benefit of knowing business, and I built the business, learned photography. And what I did to really increase my skills in a quick way is never saying no to an opportunity, whether I was scared of it or had never done it before. And so I got to do many, many cool things. That I would run home and Google how to do this, info, how to shoot this thing, and then go do it, and it tended to work out. So I'm a little more accomplished now. I understand the technical side of the photography, in depth as much as anybody does, and have a broad variety of things that I photograph. Train photography was always a hobby, but it's kind of turned into more than that now.
And I understand that you're predominantly a Canon user.
Yeah, it's all Canon. I'll use off-brand lenses at times, but I've switched to the Canon R series. The R5 is my camera body, and I'm using all their native lenses now. I do have a couple of EF lenses from Canon and one Sigma lens, but that's my wide fast lens for any sort of deep space things I need to do or really dark rooms, because it's a 20 mil wide and 1.4 aperture, so it sees a lot of light. But the Canon's 15 to 35 RF lens that they have now, the 2.8, pretty much defeats that lens now in quality, because there's no sort of weird coma in the corners or stretching or loss of lights in the corner anymore. So the technology has improved. It has jumped, fourfold since the previous version of even the Canon. Like the 5D4 is a great camera, but this R5 is far and away incredible in comparison.
When was the first time that you had the opportunity to photograph the holiday train?
Had I seen it before? No, I don't think so. I'm not even sure I'd seen it before I was on the train. I got invited to be a guest on the train in 2015. This is just 2 years after I started my photography career, and there's a bunch of happen chances that caused me to be on that train. So my family got invited, and what CP had said was, well, you can stay on the train as long as you want. You just have to get off the train and go get your own hotel and transportation. And then if you want to go for multiple days, hop back on the train. So we decided to go for 2 days and get off the train in Fernie, BC. So, and that was with an overnighter in Lethbridge. And so that was honestly, from the train was the first time I've shot the train.
And for those who haven't followed my blog or your website and are wondering what the heck we're fan gushing over, the Canadian Pacific Holiday Train since 1999 has run from coast to coast. They now have 2 trains. One travels throughout Canada. One is borders between Canada and the United States. They stop at over 150 locations throughout both countries, and they put on a short little country music concert. The trains are all festooned with beautiful lights and holiday imagery, and all the performances are free to the public. The only thing that Canadian Pacific asks is that you bring food or financial donations for your local food bank, since the holiday train is designed to be a fundraiser for food insecurity.
Yeah. So, and to Canadian Pacific's credit, there are no sponsors. There are no sort of extra asks. They just roll through. They create this train and they roll through. And on top of asking you to bring in food and money with you, and you don't have to, you can just come and enjoy this no matter what your financial or family or job situation is. Come enjoy the train. It's fabulous on its own. But if you can support, just bring a bag of food or a few bucks to drop. There's always someone there, and it's the local food bank of all these towns and cities. They don't sort of create a general pot. It's specifically staying in these towns, and they present a big check at every one of these.
I know, I've seen those many times at the concerts. All these checks. I mean, you could barely put them in a car. Those checks.
They're very big.
One of the things that I really enjoy about the holiday train, and I'm sure you do as well, is just the fact that it's always lit, whether whether it's at the concert venue or whether it's arriving to the concert venue. So you could actually be at a crossing and see this 14-car train go by with all the lights going and the holiday music playing in the background, or you could actually be in the crowd at a depot or at a train station when you watch the train just pull up, and then that stage door opens and then the concert begins.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. They turn the lights on day one, and they don't turn them off until the trip is completely over. And the music is always playing. There's speakers on the outside of the car, so there's always a jingle going on, as even if you were to be standing there and it goes by, the music rolls by, and you get this sort of it gives us an immense amount of joy for people. Like, they stop on the highway because they know it's coming, and they don't go to the main show. Sometimes they're very, very crowded in some of the bigger centers. They'll pull off on a country road and just watch it go by from a half mile away. And it's just that spectacular for anybody at any time. Even during the day, it's like everybody wants to see it at night because of the lights, but they've done a great job in decorating the train, and it's a beautiful the historical box cars and the business cars on the back where the performers and the train staff stay during the train trip are beautiful. They're the heavyweight passenger cars on the back end as well. So it's beautiful no matter when you see it.
Now, I do understand you have some images that you've shot of the holiday train that you would like to talk about, or at least show, so that people can understand, first of all, how these pictures came about. I mean, a lot of these times you're planning probably for months and months, and then probably in other instances it's like, oh my God, this just happened, grab the camera, shoot.
I have really good examples of both of those things. So I'm in the process right now of planning my shoots this year for the train, including the tour that I host. And what I do is I travel on Google Maps and Google Streets every mile of that track, and I look for interesting spots and then once I see interesting spots, I look for where I can stand safely to be able to make that photo. If it is like it's bridge crossings, in downtown of big cities, at level crossings, there's overheads, there's mountain backdrops, there's river backdrops, there's reflection areas, like if there's a pond or a lake next to the track, that's a really cool place to get reflections. So I make all those plans, and then sometimes if it's close enough by, if it's in Alberta, British Columbia nearby, I'll drive out and scout them ahead of time and look at freight trains going by and doing that. So it's a labor of love. There's the image there. Chuck, can you see that?
Yes, I see that perfectly. That is one of the images that actually I saw that and I thought, oh my God, I wish I could have gotten something like that.
No one will. You'll never get another photo like that. This was such a unique situation. This was the first day I had experienced the holiday train, and I was on the train, and I begged the train staff to stop the train on this bridge. I know enough about photography that this image at night can't be made with details in the lighting while the train is moving, because you can't speed up your camera fast enough in this light to get any sort of resolve. So I begged and begged and begged for them and made myself a real pain in the butt for them. And they finally said yes. And then I begged for a ride to this location because I kind of pre-scouted this on maps. And I knew Lethbridge a little bit too, because this bridge is very, very famous. It's the highest train bridge in North America, right? So, and longest. And so I asked them to stop the train, and they did. I went down there, and while I was down there, this fog bank rolled in, and I thought, oh no, this shot is ruined. It's never going to be able to see the train. And then I heard the train whistle, and this ethereal glow of blinking colors coming over the ridge to the right of this from this frame. And the train pulls on, and I couldn't believe my luck. I just couldn't believe my luck. So I made this photo, and the train stopped for about 45 seconds, and I made probably 15 shots in that time. And this was one of them. And I rushed back to the car because I was about a half mile away from my ride, and he had to get back up to secure the train. So I rushed back, and then when we got to our hotel that night, I edited this photo, sent it to CP Rail. They posted it on their social medias and got 4.5 million views that night, and kind of helped elevate the status of this train, this experience. So I've been a part of it ever since, every single year. Even including the virtual years, I've been a part of it. So I went out to Ontario. This is a crossing at Nipigon, and it's a little bit grainy and a little bit mottled in places just because they couldn't stop the train. They were so far behind on this day. They were probably 45 minutes to an hour behind, and they couldn't stop the train. So this is me shooting, at 12,800 ISO and getting it, because he's crossing this bridge at about 10 miles an hour, but still made it pretty cool. Just with the opportunity to photograph this train in so many different cool places. This is Three Valley Gap in British Columbia when you enter the Rocky Mountains there. And I've just had a great fortune of traveling around with this train, even on snowy plains of the prairies, where the wind's blowing like crazy, and scouting these spots ahead of time, making sure that we are again safely doing this, but making sure we find all the best spots as well. So including the shows and the experience that the show is happening. So I'll stop share a sec there. Yeah, so it's pretty I'm the luckiest train photographer in the world, to be honest, to be able to get these opportunities. Like, anybody can chase this train, but just kind of having as deep understanding as I have as the schedules and how the stops work, and knowing how to leapfrog when that train stops, because the train's relentless, Chuck, right? If the train is moving, you've photographed freight trains. When it goes by, it's gone. Even at highway speeds, you can't keep up to these trains because they don't have to stop at lights. They don't got to make turns. They're not going to have traffic, right? So they're gone, right? So we do have the benefit with the holiday train that it stops for these 1 hour shows or half an hour shows with 15 minutes on either side, where I can leapfrog it again and get to my next target.
Exactly. You could set it up in such a way that you can get an arrival in one place and then run to the second place for the concert. And then maybe for the third place, you could just get the arrival or the departure.
Yeah.
And
and it's not, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, and one of the other things that I know you're very cognizant of, and all train photographers should be cognizant of, is we always photograph so that there's no question that we are in a safe spot when we're photographing. There's too many times out there, and of course, Canadian Pacific is very strong with Operation Lifesaver, is we never want to create a situation where people are photographing on the tracks or in a situation where they're too close to the tracks.
Yeah, I'll share one that might. Where is it? 1 second. Okay, so this one, we talk about on the tracks and next to the tracks and that sort of thing. This is me standing on a side track next to the train, but with the blessing, permission, and safety protocols from CP Rail. This was at the virtual show last year that they filmed in Crow's Nest Pass, and the train was stationary. The track that was beside it was locked down, like no other trains could come down, and I was given permission to be in this position. It's a pretty dream shot for a lot of photographers, but I would say that don't even try to attempt it on public tracks, right? Don't do this, right? Because it's again, this was with full permission, including like being directly in front of the train. I was able to go out on the ice next to the train, so this was the same track. But just making sure that we don't, put ourselves in any sort of, compromising position near the train, because as relentless as it is in schedule, it's incredibly unforgiving. And one of the things that I know about trains is they are deadly silent until they're on you. Right? It's amazing if the wind is blowing the wrong way, because they're moving, right? If they're doing 60 or 70 on the track, the sound doesn't carry much faster than the train does, and it'll be on you in a heartbeat.
And also, you have to remember the trains actually go both ways on a track. Just because you see one set of tracks and you think the train's coming from east to west, you don't know about the other line that's coming from west to east. So you always have to keep your head on a swivel and make absolutely sure that you're not in a situation where you could get picked off by a side of the boxcar or anything like that.
Yep. Yeah, you'd be amazed at how far that train leans in going around the corner. The other thing too is any of the ditches that are beside the train tracks are private property, so you are trespassing if you're in the train's ditch. So that's just one last note for our viewers.
When you're shooting the holiday train or any train at that point, you're basically prepared with 3 different types of lenses. You've got your telephoto, you've got your ultra wide, and you've got your prime. And for viewers of the blog who maybe want to get involved with this, when are the best instances to use each of those types of lenses?
Whenever you're near the tracks, if you're on like at a public crossing or on an overhead, like a public crossing above, or typically you're going to use a wide lens. You want to capture more of the train.
So one of the great things about the holiday train, and we were talking about this before, is the different types of lenses that you can use, because you've got 14 box cars that are all lit up. You definitely want to have something where you can get that, what they call, I guess in train parlance, photographing that 3/4 wedge style, where you can get from the locomotive all the way to the caboose and getting it all in beautiful lighting.
Yeah, it's again with it depends on where we're shooting and what we're shooting and how we're doing it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So there's ways to make these how you want them. Like it depends on, as a photographer, it can be, just about anything. Like you could like just the one boxcar, you could like just the head end, you could like the entire train, like this one. This one is probably shot with a 70-200 telephoto lens. I've shot, way longer lenses. Like I use a telephoto lens that goes to 500 millimeters for some shots. This would be one of them in Cochrane, Alberta, to get the feeling of the show that's happening and how far those cars lean over, like we just talked about. But it depends. Like here's a wider lens than than this one, and kind of shows the whole train as well. And then when you start getting far away from things, this is, you think this is a wide lens, but it's not. This is probably 100 millimeters to be able to photograph that one. This is probably 70, 80 millimeters in front of the city. So it really depends on what what your particular taste is. Maybe you just like locomotives. Maybe you like cabooses. There's no more cabooses, but maybe you like boxcars. Maybe you like graffiti. Maybe you like the longer shots from further away, or trying to get closer and wider. So it really is a personal preference.
I totally get it. Just a couple more things I want to add on here. And I want to give you an opportunity to promote your upcoming class that you're going to be offering for people who want to photograph the holiday train in the Alberta, British Columbia area.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I host, this will be my second one. In 2019, before the pandemic, I hosted a trip that included Lethbridge, Cranbrook, Fernie, Nelson, and back up to Radium, and then that was 4 days on the road. So this time we're going through Banff, Revelstoke, and Salmon Arm, and the stops in between. But that includes Rogers Pass, spiral tunnels, Morant's Curve. You've all heard of these things, and places that are incredible to shoot. And I'm very lucky because Morant's Curve is 100 miles from my house. So I get this opportunity, and Nicholas Morant was the most famous CP rail photographer, and he has this beautiful curve on the tracks in Banff National Park named for him. And so we're very lucky to have that spot. And even Parks Canada built a parking lot and a proper viewing platform there now, so you don't have to stand on the road anymore. So it works out pretty good, and being safe there. But yeah, the trip this year is December 13th to 17th. So we're going to chase the train for 3 full days from Calgary to Banff, Banff to Revelstoke, Revelstoke to Salmon Arm, and then coming back, we'll spend an extra night in Field, BC, which is right below Spiral Tunnels, and a beautiful train historical place at a place called Truffle Pigs Lodge. We'll spend the night there on the way home. But so the 13th through the 17th, the trip is just for 6 people. My van holds 11. But with all our big wide gear and winter gear that we're going to have on as well, because this is December in the Rockies, even Calgary might not have snow then, but the mountains, Rogers Pass, will have feet and feet, dozens of feet of snow up there. So it's a great tour. So Ticket Taylor and Neil Zeller, if you Google that, Ticket Taylor, Neil Zeller, my list of things will come up, including that, and you'd find all the details on that.
One final thing, though. I know that for 2020 and 2021, the holiday train was virtual due to the pandemic, but there was an opportunity, and I'm sure you were actually blessed to do this, that the holiday train, the Canadian Pacific, brought out their steam locomotive, the Empress, and took that around the Calgary yards. And I'm sure you were out there chasing it with your camera.
I was, and I'm very lucky. I have a image queued up here for that. I was extremely lucky to be able to see that train in operation, shunting back and forth in the Ogden yards here in Calgary. It didn't go very far, but man, was it neat to see that thing on the road, and it's going to get back on the road again here too. There's the firebox as it sits now. I actually got a ride in the cab of that locomotive, so. Yeah, it was a really special moment to see it, and it sounds like all rumors are true that this thing is going to be rebuilt to proper operating specs, and they've got some pretty fun plans for it in the future, from the sounds of it.
I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. Mine is 2246, which is the American train. So, as I said, from my end, we don't get as much of the snow. We'll get a lot of the dry area, but the night shots, the fog, we're actually going to be doing quite well. Let me see if I can quickly try to share something on my screen.
Sure thing.
Let's see. I think this might be it. Let's see. Like, for example, this is one of the shots that I've pulled off. This is, I got this in 2018 as it crossed over the Cohoes Waterford Bridge.
Yeah.
Got very lucky on that. That was one of my telephoto, and just waiting. And you know how it is to wait for these things.
The train is always coming. This was the advice I got from a Canadian Pacific Railway employee the one day when I texted and said, "Hey, I'm standing at Morant's Curve. Is there any trains coming today?" And she said, "Neil, the train is always coming," which is absolutely true, Chuck.
It is, and they say it's coming. It's just whether or not it's coming in our area.
Well, any train's coming. The trains are if there's a track, the train's coming, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Neil, I really appreciate you taking time in all of this, and thank you so much for being part of this. And I look forward to seeing your photos this year. And definitely for those of you that follow the holiday train, by all means, it's cpr.ca/holiday-train. You can see where it is scheduled to arrive, possibly in your neighborhood. And if you want to try to be part of Neil Zeller's class, you can go to tickettailor.com/Neil Zeller and sign up. There's still some spots available, I believe.
Yeah, you bet. So I just posted that a couple of days ago, so I haven't really advertised it fully yet. But yeah, it's going to be a fabulous time. The website also this year has a live tracker of the train. So you can actually see where it is with a 5-minute refresh, where it is anywhere on the track. So you can, if you're waiting for it somewhere in the wilds where it isn't a scheduled stop, you can open up your phone and they have a mobile button you can hit there and get that map and see exactly where it is moving down the tracks toward you.
I appreciate it. Neil, thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck, for having me.